this video, I'll be making the legendary Ford GT40 out of sheets of paper. In the past, I've tried to make model vehicles before, but the results weren't as satisfying, so I thought I'd give it another go. So follow me as I go through the journey of crafting this amazing vehicle from scratch. So the first step was to make a basic shape to build off of. So I started by outlining the side profile of the car. So I've printed off an outline of the GT40 and I'm going to use this as a sort of guide to give me the rough shape of the side profile. Alright. These were not going to stand by themselves, so I applied some strips to work as a support beam. And with this structure that held together, I could start adding details of the front of the car. But the challenges of the build were already showing difficulty when I started adding more curves to the design, especially with the fenders and the bonnet of the car. Working on the side bits here that curve up and down, but since I can't curve the paper without creasing it too much, I'm just gonna do it in different parts, and that way it will look a lot cleaner. I couldn't find a way to add one complete curve for each side, without damaging the paper of course. Instead, I broke them down into smaller sections to form the curve instead of one big bend. After these were installed, there was even more support to cut some details into the front of the car. I even added a front bumper. The front of the Ford was near completion, so I moved my focus towards the top of the vehicle. Ta-da! This needed a bit more measuring and accuracy, as the pieces would have the most contact with the other panels. The windshield especially, as it would be glued to the roof, the doors, and the bonnet. I didn't cut the top of the windshield straight away though, because I wanted to make sure that it aligned with the curvature of the roof edge. With the top now constructed, there were enough contact points to add the rear fenders. I made them slightly longer than the rear so I can warp the paper around to create another curve. The air vents on the GT40 were added at this point, but I'll talk about those later on as I changed my approach with them. At this part of the journey though, I worked on the rear of the paper model, carving out the shape of it, and punching holes to make the brake lights with red paper. There we go. We got the back. Look at that. Look at that. The next step after working on the rear was making the doors. Now, it wasn't hard creating the doors. It just took a long time. I went back and forth, measuring and tracing to get the doors to align perfectly with the car body. But after a few attempts, I made a shape that fit perfectly on the side. I even added black paper for the side windows. As the doors would be covering the edge of the black paper, it didn't need to be as precise. So I cut it slightly bigger than I would to get more surface area to glue it. The easiest part of this journey came next. All I had to do was glue the door in place on the body. It was just a matter of cleaning up the excess glue and waiting for it to dry and set. It was quite seamless actually, very impressed by that. This door's based off of the right side, but I was thinking like if I wanted to make the top identical, especially with the curves, I need to sort of outline this shape here and then cut around and basically fold it the other way around to make this door. But it came out really well, so yeah, I'm just gonna keep going. With this phase done and most of the main components put together, I just needed to reconstruct the air vents, the ones I mentioned before. I wasn't quite happy with my first approach, but fortunately I ended up with a new idea that turned out to be a lot better. So I've got this piece of card and I've basically cut an angle on this edge so it can fit around the curve of the back of the car. And then by curling it around, I should be able to form the shape of the air duct. One air duct done, 3 more to go. By copying the first successful attempt, I managed to add the other parts quite quickly. The end results were way better than the previous attempt, so I kept this design. It's on now, so is the other side. It's quite flush with the edges, and yeah, I'm pretty proud of that, so I'm just going to keep going. I think we're just about ready to do the tyres. Like the doors, the tyres took a long time to make. They were small, had some intricate components, and I had to produce these 4 times. I started by creating the rims and getting the pattern inside them to resemble closely to the ones on the GT40. I then placed them inside the tyres that I made with black paper. Once all 4 tyres were assembled, I glued them in place. This was pretty simple to do. I even added the knockoff nuts as an extra bit of detail. There was only a few things to do now, so I added the final air vents. I also added some pieces of the rear and included an attachment component for the exhaust. The final thing to do from there now was to add the headlights and finish the bumper. And then I was ready to step back and admire the paper Ford GT40.